it's Bailey. Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a quick review and a little comparison of Too Faced's brand new semi-sweet chocolate bar palette. Very recently, Sephora made these available exclusively to VIBs, and so knowing that it was going to become widely available sooner, I wanted to hop on it, give it a test drive, and let you know my thoughts and see whether it is a must-have or a pass. So let's jump right in. This little baby retails for $49. It is the exact same price as the original chocolate bar palette, and just while I have them up here, for the sake of comparison, the packaging has changed a little bit. The semi-sweet is a little bit thinner, but it's still the same sort of plasticky tin feel that the original has. So it has a nice hard casing, it has a magnetic closure, so you don't have to worry about it coming apart when you travel with it, and it also has a nice sized mirror in there. I've used this multiple times already to apply my makeup. So packaging, A. So you open it up, and the first thing I noticed was not the colors, not anything, it was the scent. Just like the original and like all of Too Faced chocolate products, this smells like a chocolate bar. It smells heavenly. I personally think some who aren't so fond of scented products and wearing them on your face might not like it so much, but the fade does. It doesn't actually stay on your skin. You're not smelling it for any amount of time once it's on your face. Just so you're aware in case you're totally new to the new Too Faced chocolate products, but it's definitely something that you will notice the second you open up the palette. So love it or hate it, it's definitely still there with this palette. And then you go in to see that you get 16 shadows just as you do with the original, but it's a totally different color palette in here. Of course you get lots of neutrals, but unlike the original, let me hold it up for you for the sake of comparison, these are much warmer. And at first I was very hesitant because I personally tend to prefer cooler to middle of the road neutrals, if that makes any sense. And so when I first saw this, I thought, you know, naturally it's a great way to balance out the kind of cooler tones that are in here and the purpley tones. However, I didn't think it was going to be everyone's cup of tea because some of these metallics in this warm camel up here can get very warm and not necessarily flat or neutral skin tones. More on that later though. I want to talk about the division in texture here because one thing that I absolutely loved about the original is the wide variety of textures. There was everything from matte to shimmer to glitter and beyond. It just had all those bases covered, and so the same can be said for this palette and then some. You get 5 matte shadows in here, including a shade called Licorice, a nice matte highlight. The mattes themselves also perform beautifully. They're all just as smooth and creamy as they were in the first palette. They blend beautifully into the crease. You could create an entirely matte eye out of all these shadows because there are so many of them that kind of span the spectrum from light to dark. You could easily do an all matte look. There are also some great shimmery or even downright metallic shades. I'm actually wearing this on my eyes right now. There will be a tutorial of this and another look that I created using this palette coming up shortly. But I am using some of these shimmers on my eyes, and I have to say they are super pigmented. They definitely come off almost metallic. They are so shimmery, and the shimmer is so fine, which I think is fantastic. And you get 5, maybe 6 of those in here, since I think while Blueberry Swirl, the obviously blue shade in this palette, is very shimmery, it kind of has a chunkier sparkle in it, which you'll be able to see in the swatches. Then there are shadows that have chunkier sparkle. And then the new kind of texture that I personally have never seen from Too Faced is this from Pink Sugar, and it's more like a glittery overlay. You can't, especially in the swatch picture here, you can just see that it is not meant to be built up to create this pink you see here in the palette. It is a multi-dimensional light pink, just shimmery to go over any other color you might have on your lids. To be honest, I appreciate what they were trying to do in adding this shade and the additional texture to this palette, but it's not personally my favorite. In fact, it's my least favorite because it kind of isn't very well coordinated with this color palette, and then in terms of performance, it just isn't my favorite. It's not going to be a practical shadow for me all the time, unlike a lot of these shadows in here are. Now onto the colors. It obviously has an even mix of textures, a great array of shades, and like I said before, they look overwhelmingly warm in the palette, but I'm pleased to say that when actually worn, they are far more flattering than I anticipated. These colors and textures play really nice with each other. There is no splotchiness, none that are hard to blend together. They all look and blend beautifully together on the lid, which is kind of expected from Too Faced because it's a $49 palette, and then Too Faced itself is just kind of known, to me at least, as a brand that makes amazing eyeshadows, and so this definitely didn't fall short in terms of the shadow quality. So to sum all that up, in case it wasn't obvious, I love this palette. I think it's a fantastic palette, and the colors might surprise you with just how flattering they are, even if you tend to steer more towards these safer, neutral, borderline cool shades. These will surprise you. There also is the one, what I consider to be a dud, this pink here, Pink Sugar. In my opinion, it's a dud. But I wouldn't let it stop you from buying the entire palette because there are some amazing shades to be had in here. So overall, as a standalone palette, it's fantastic. But then I also wanted to talk about owning the two, whether you need to, can you get away with just one, which would you pick? And I would say that if Too Faced shadows are your thing and you just love having these chocolate bar palettes, you can absolutely have the two together and not worry about that many shades overlapping and duplicating them. There were about 3 that came off very similarly when swatched and looked nearly identical when worn. They are they're staple shades, so that I think they're those that a lot of people will run out of quickly, and so having a duplicate might not be that big of a deal. But in the event that you are wanting to make sure you get as many unique shades out of this palette as possible, you have to be aware that they do exist. There are a few that are very similar in between the two palettes. Beyond that, however, I think it's obvious to see that they are pretty distinctly different color palettes. You can have one without worrying about creating identical looks from the other. There is that matte black here that the first one lacks, and the first one has a ton of beautiful purples and plummy hues that the second one just doesn't have. So all that being said, I really hope this was a useful video for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know down below, if you've tried it, what you thought about it, if you're gonna be getting it. I'd love to hear all that in the comment section below. Thanks again for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.